the inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
The attitude to keep placing these kids back into these families that should not have kids, period, has got to stop.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. Over the last several months, two horrible murders of very young children, the abuse and starvation of a 2-year-old and the decapitation of a 3-month-old, have shocked the region and once again raised questions about the systems that are in place to protect children. The baseline for these types of questions goes back to the slow, agonizing murder of 5-year-old Marcus Feisel in 2006 at the hands of his foster parents. What have we learned since then? What can be done better in the future? To explore these questions, I am joined this morning by Hurley Schlaack. Ms. Schlaack has served as a guardian ad litem, a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate. She is the author of Invisible Kids, Marcus Feisel's Legacy, and the founder and director of the Invisible Kids Project. Hurley, welcome back to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure everybody sees the book, Invisible Kids. You were first on here as a guest when this book came out, and of course the Marcus Feisel experience galvanize this community and focus this community's attention. And now you have moved beyond that. You've sort of taken this national.
I have.
What is Invisible Kids?
Invisible Kids Project is a nonprofit designed to build a collective voice for these children, a voice so powerful that our elected officials can no longer ignore the crises facing the system. Since 2009, when I wrote my book about Marcus, I never really thought that my career would take the path it has, but I train nationally now topics related to abused and neglected infants and toddlers. And as I've traveled around the country the past 6 years, I have seen that really the system is very compromised everywhere. It's not just in Hamilton County, it's not just in Ohio. And so the question becomes, how do we fix that? What is wrong with our model of child protection that it is failing so many children? It's not that it's any one person's fault. It's not any agency's fault. We have a design flaw, and so we have to figure out what is at the crux of that design flaw. How do we fix it? Because really, kids who have been abused or neglected, they should be our priority. They are the most helpless, vulnerable victims in our society. They are going to grow up with a lot of problems if we don't help them.
Your organization is national in scope, and you present some national data that takes this beyond any local, incident 6 years ago or the last couple of months. And I'd like to share that because sort of the data here is sort of overwhelming. So you point out that in any one day, on average, 1,837 children are victims who are victims of abuse and neglect will enter the child caring system, the foster care system, whatever it's called in any one state. They'll do that today.
Today.
That's the average today. They will then be they'll be joining a group of about 400 kids who are in that, 400,000 kids in that child welfare system at any one time. 400,000 across the nation. And nearly 2,000 American children will be killed by abuse and neglect annually. All three of those figures, 1,800 children a day, 400,000 at any one time, 2,000 killed. These are staggering figures.
They're mind-boggling figures. And if you think about it, child maltreatment, a child dies of abuse and neglect in this country every 5.5 hours. So literally within hours of abuse and neglect, usually by someone they know, by their family, or maybe the boyfriend, girlfriend of the parent. So looking at these numbers, and also infants and toddlers are the fastest growing group of kids in foster care. 1 in 4 kids coming into foster care is a baby under 1 year old. Okay, so think about that in terms of their growth and development and what we are setting the stage for them lifelong. Abuse, neglect in the first year is very troubling and traumatic. And then when you put them into a system that is very compromised, you're asking for even more problems.
So, first off, I think there's two sets of things. What are you trying to get? You want people, you want broad public to get engaged.
Yes.
What can the broad public do? And are there methods that you're trying to shape to help people do something?
There are. About a year ago, I brought together a group of people who had worked in the system in all capacities, former magistrates, caseworkers, foster parents, and said, what are we doing? What can we do differently? Why can't we seem to fix this? And what we have really landed on in the past year and a half is we're missing the public. We're missing the public voice. We're missing people standing up and saying enough is enough. These kids deserve better.
So there's lots of professionals, legal professionals,
Yes.
social service professionals, child caring professionals who are speaking about this, but they're not getting it changed.
They're speaking about it as much as they can, but you know, within any system, there are a lot of limitations. And I really believe in order to fundamentally shift and fix the system, it has to come from the outside. And when I started Invisible Kids Project, I purposefully surrounded myself with business people, marketing, publicity, all the corporate business folks, and said, let's bring some of that mindset into how we're handling the system. So we started our Step Up and Fix This campaign.
And we've got the logo that we can bring
All right,
up.
good. So that campaign is designed to build one big collective voice. We mailed over 600 letters to elected officials last week, within the past week or two, asking for two specific things for them to do. One is to make the numbers publicly available and easy to find related to kids in foster care per county. For example, if you have a county where they sent a bunch of kids home from foster care back to families or relatives within a 1 or 2 month time period prior to the end of a fiscal year, it begs the question, were these kids sent home, was that a financially driven decision, or was it a best interest decision?
And is that somewhat related to what Prosecutor Dieters was just talking about, that we've got to make sure there's checks on putting kids back into homes where they're not safe?
Right. There are two issues. One is sometimes I think the system feels pressure to put kids back into families that they're not ready to care for them because of budget problems. I think no one would probably say that publicly, but I think a lot of that goes on. And then the other issue is this mindset we have that children belong to their family and that children need to go back to their family. I'm a strong believer in that. I believe that family should be together whenever possible, but there are parents who should not parent. And what we do in the system is we leave kids in foster care for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, despite federal mandates that tell us not to. But the states don't follow them. 50 out of 50 do not follow federal mandates, which is a big problem.
So so you're writing to public officials.
Yes.
What public officials? Now you just made the division between federal policies, local implementation. Where are the pressure points that you're looking for?
This is exactly why it's so complicated, because there's no one place to send everybody. It's very fragmented. So nationally, all the congressmen and women, President, Vice President, Health and Human Services Secretary, Sylvia Matthews Burrell, Attorney General, so all of those folks on the federal level, all of them is who we want to hit. And then locally, our Hamilton County Commissioners are the folks who oversee Job and Family Services. And so if people in the public are unhappy with the way Children's Services is acting, or they feel Children's Services needs more funding, more support, more help, and I firmly believe that we can do a lot as a community to support and encourage those people doing the really hard job on the front line, they need to let their commissioners know that. Most people don't understand that the commissioners oversee the county.
But what about the response that just putting more money into a system that's broken doesn't solve the system? And you can get that in lots of areas, the education system, the schools.
Yes.
People say, don't put any more money there, the schools don't work, no matter what the data says. Or in this situation, if the system is fundamentally flawed, should we put more money into it?
Well, if you caught me before, I said support and encouragement. Money can help or not help. In fact, we have a survey on our website that we have surveyed people working in the system or interfacing with it, and we ask what's the number one thing that we need to fix the system. It's not more money. More money is number 3, and it comes after more common sense is the number 1 answer from the people around the country who are working in the system. We need more common sense. That's free.
What does common sense mean, though?
Common sense means that you don't have a child in the same foster home for 3.5 years, and then random aunt from another state pops up and says, okay, I think I'll take this child now, and then we put that child on a plane and we send them to that aunt. We are completely disregarding attachment, relationships, best interest, healthy growth and development. It's those kinds of subtle things in the system that happen.
So common sense is one. What's number two in that?
Common sense is number one. Community involvement. I wish I knew what the second one was. It's community involvement. It's something that does not.
The disconnect between the system and the general public.
There's a giant disconnect, and that's what we're trying to fix, is the disconnect between the folks who are just getting up, taking care of their families, going to their job, being good citizens, the disconnect between those folks and then these foster kids, these kids in the system. So in order for folks to know that these kids are here, we have to know the numbers, which is what we're asking for from the elected officials.
Well, let's take local counties. Do we know the numbers of children in foster care in Hamilton, Claremont, Warren, Kenton, Boone, Campbell?
You know, we should be able to get those numbers.
Right.
But who's going to go look for those numbers? You know, what average person is going to call and say, hey, could you get me the numbers for whatever? Now, it's a little bit tricky to figure out how to get the numbers. They're public, but getting your hands on them is another matter.
So if I go to the web at Job and Family Services, the child caring section, if I hunt around that system, am I going to be able to find it?
I doubt you're going to be able to find it. Now, they might say in general, we served 17,000 kids this year. But what we want to know is how many kids are in foster care, how many kids were re-abused in foster care, and how many kids exited foster care. Because that's when you start to see patterns over months and years of where are these patterns and where are these kids. Because people cannot get involved in help and care until they realize these kids are right here. They're right here. And the first step in that is, what are those numbers?
You know, there's also this issue of, there's the foster care system, but there's also, these last two incidents locally took place not with foster parents, and let's make sure there's lots of really good foster parents out there. Let's not paint that brush.
Exactly.
But, so how do you also get at the question of abuse and neglect, not just in the foster care system? Is this part of what you're after as well?
It's the mentality and the mindset. Okay, let me explain. I had a case once as guardian ad litem in juvenile court, and parent had left their kids home alone. Protective daycare vouchers were issued. The county did everything they needed to do. The parent did it again, and the case opened. And the question was, what services are we going to give the parent to prevent this from happening? And I thought, we already did. The county did everything they could do. She had protective daycare vouchers. What else do you want them to do? This mindset of, and what are we going to do to help the kids get back home? After we've done so much, it becomes, what else is there to do? And that becomes, what are we comfortable with as a society? What are we comfortable with when it comes to parenting?
I'm going to go off the track here.
You're way off track.
Because I shared with you that I wrote the history of the Children's Home of Cincinnati, which started out as what people would call an orphanage, and it went through different stages, and I would argue that the way it started out wasn't exactly an orphanage, but okay. It migrated into one. It's no longer one because we don't believe in those things anymore. Is there a place in society, in American society, for congregal living for abused, dependent children that, you know, there were lots of abuses there. We got rid of that system because we said people should be in homes and they should be with their families. Now you're saying maybe we've swung too far and we're locked into everybody should be back to their families somehow. Is there a place for even blowing that part of the system up?
You know, there is this pendulum, obviously, that swings, and everybody wants to go back to orphanages. If I had a dime...
Not only everybody does. I usually get pushed back right away.
Okay, people ask the question.
Okay,
all right,
let's
say people ask the question about orphanages, and it's a fair question, but we tried it, and for whatever reasons, it did not work. And so we tried something else. So why now are we going to go back and try what we already tried before?
Well, I'm not saying we go back to and replace what we got now with that. I'm saying, is there a new mix? Is there on a smaller scale opportunities there? I
definitely do believe there are benefits to that kind of environment. First of all, siblings could stay together.
Right.
That's huge. It's huge if you can have siblings stay together in a place. And you have stability and consistency and routine. But you have to have the right people running those places.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? That's the issue.
But we've got some great organizations in this town that used to be doing that, who are run by fantastic people that I have absolute respect for. We have clearly only scratched the surface of this. And you'll be back, but I want to make sure people know how to find out more about your organization and get involved, because that's what you're asking, and here it is. If you want to learn more about the Invisible Kids Project, and sign a letter to public officials demanding more creative response, go to the web at www.invisiblekids.org. And there's all kinds of information, contact information, figure out how to get to Holly, and all sorts of things.
And I do believe it's easy for us to think, I'm just one voice and I don't matter. And the reality is, these kids need every single voice that they can get. And if enough people step up and say, it's time that we do better, that's the only way that we are going to motivate our government systems to respond better. It's going to have to come from the people. That's all there is to it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. After the break, the new Anna Louise Inn will be open in early June. Since 1909, the Anna Louise Inn has served the women of Cincinnati by providing quality, safe housing, professional service, and community of support. Now, 106 years later, it's time to move. When the leaders of Cincinnati Union Bethel announced their plans to rehab the century-old headquarters, the Anna Louise Inn, they unwittingly stirred a hornet's nest. For the next 2 years, the process was contentious and agonizing and ended in a compromise that allowed the development of a brand new facility. In 10 days, the Cincinnati Union Bethel, CUB, will open the new Anna Louise Inn at 2401 Reading Road in Mount Auburn with 21st century amenities. What does a new facility mean for the oldest social service organization west of the Allegheny Mountains? To discuss the opening on June the 9th and the future of the Anna Louise Inn, I'm joined by Steve MacConnell, the president and CEO of Cincinnati Union Bethel, and Mary Carol Melton, the executive vice president of CUB. Welcome back to Newsmakers.
Good morning.
We're here in sort of a more celebratory way than we have in certain other times. And Steve, let's start out by, what will this new, we got exteriors, but what will this new facility mean for the women who live at Anna Louise Inn?
It will mean everything to them. Their excitement at this point, and many have walked through and had a tour, has brought tears to their eyes. And words like, we haven't been treated this way before. And as you know, we've been in a dormitory style, and these will be efficiency apartments. That's the key, because those are our clients, and we're very excited about that.
So, Mary Carol, give us some details of what it means to be in a apartment style versus a dormitory style, because in terms of everyday life, what's the difference?
Well, the difference is independence, increased quality of life, just having the sense of being more in charge of your daily routine. I mean, in the old Anna Louise Inn, the rooms were very small, approximately 100 square feet, no private bathroom facilities, no kitchen, and these apartments are absolutely wonderful. They have a fully equipped kitchen, private bathroom, a little sitting room, a bedroom. So the amenities are just wonderful, but it's really what's happening, and I think that's what Steve was alluding to the women and how they feel about this, is that this is such a move up for them in really continuing to increase self-sufficiency. We are also really excited that we're partnering with the Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health. We'll have 2 on-site counselors that are there simply to really help wrap services around the women who need them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not just housing.
Right.
And that's why I was getting at, there's all sorts of professional services throughout your history, and also building the sense of community.
Yeah.
I know the women support each other. But, so, mental health services, who are the women who live at Anne Louise Inn? And will the type of person who lives in the current Anne Louise Inn be any different than who you're open to in this new facility?
There will be some additional rooms for homeless, and we will have our Off the Streets program in the new inn. But generally, in a general way, the demographic will be quite similar. It'll be affordable housing, subsidized from various sources, with women who enjoy safety, may have barriers of poverty or different emotional and moderate mental health issues, but the Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health will be there for them, for everyone in the building.
So Off the Streets will be in the inn.
They will.
And this is
Yes.
something, Mary Carol, you've had a large hand in creating, running, building, and just remind us what Off the Streets is.
Well, the Off the Streets started almost 10 years ago, Dan, and it was a community collaborative that really looked at what was happening to women in our criminal justice system. And the largest population of women that were really creating some overcrowding in the jail, and that subpopulation of the women who were creating that were women involved in prostitution. So it's specifically addressing issues related to women who are primarily homeless, involved in prostitution, often drug use, but who have gone through some sort of treatment. And as we all know as a community, the rise in the heroin has had a tremendous impact. But the program itself is peer-led, so we are able to provide really a safe place for the women to regroup and to decide what they really want to do next in their lives. And they get to work with women who have similar life experiences. It's been a phenomenal
And this is
program.
not a quick and out program. This
It is not.
Women can be there for a year.
Well, we've had women up to a year. I would
Yeah.
say that normally 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
And then they're able to move on to other housing,
And
employment.
over that 10-year period, what kind of success rate in terms of people launching a new life in a new direction?
We look back, here's just one stat. We look back a year after somebody has left the program and has completed the program, and we have less than an 80% recidivism rate. So we're talking about women who had spent hundreds of days in jail who are no longer recidivating, no longer involved in prostitution, and no longer involved in drug use.
This has, and I alluded to this, and I don't want to get into the details and get into the weeds again and go back over that, but how do the two of you, who are the leadership positions, this was an agonizing process. Where are you emotionally at this point with this building about to open? Because you really wanted to rehab the original Anne Louise Inn. But where are you right now?
We did. That was the original plan.
Right.
Mary Carol and I were talking before we came in. We were awarded the tax credits in June of 2010. And this is, June of 2015, we're ready to move in. So it's been a 5-year process. And you alluded to some struggles.
Right.
But what I've learned is that, often as things happen in life, after struggle, things turn out just fine. And this has turned out better than just fine. We're moving forward with this. There's a very great amount of excitement in the community. And I'm feeling great about this.
Good.
Yeah.
Mary Carol, how about you? And then we've got to.
I will just say,
people know
just
some
quickly,
things.
as I was looking at the video, I can tell how I'm feeling inside because I had so much excitement when I saw the new building. It was, it was nice to see
And your
the old
offices
building.
will be back in
They
that
will
building,
be.
right?
I have to
You've
tell
been
you,
out of that. Yeah.
I am so excited, and I'm with Steve. We are totally moving forward, and this is the best outcome for the women and everybody.
Well, I want to congratulate you. I want to make sure people know about the opening.
Sure.
And To learn more about the broad base of services, we only talked a little bit, provided by Cincinnati Union Bethel, both at the new Anna Louise Inn and elsewhere in the community, go to www.cinunionbethel.org. And there's all kinds of things that you're involved with. I am so happy that you're happy. June 9th, 10 o'clock, ribbon cutting, right?
Yes,
correct.
thank you.
We'll be there.
Thank you.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week to meet the men and the women shaping our region for a better future. Have a good week.